Oh, before I forget, before I start the lesson, um, it's time to get down to business now. It's now time to do some teaching. I had not, I'd like to say congratulations to my son. I had not seen a picture of him in his new uniform yet. And someone shared a link or something, and one of the pictures was him in his new uniform. So that's pretty cool. So congratulations, honey. I'm proud of you. I am actually just now reading Tolstoy, Anna Karenina, and I'm reading it on my Kindle, which is and I'm like 56% through. Like, it tells you how much more you have to read, and I mean, honestly, this is like trekking through the desert, picking up every grain of sand as you go. And it's funny because I'm at the part where um, Levin gets married, and I mean, he spent pages describing the marriage ceremony and all this stuff, and pretty interesting, pretty interesting. Oh, I'm starting to get sleepy. I think those muscle relaxers are starting to work, kick in. So if I yawn or something, please, guys, excuse my rudeness. Um, And while I was reading, I noticed, like, that's what I do as I'm reading something. I'm also making mental, I'm enjoying the story and I'm reading the story, but I'm also, um, I don't want to use the word critiquing, but I'm also dissecting the writing, looking at the length of sentences, looking at word choices. And now to be fair, I assume it was translated from the Russian. So therefore, I'm sure it lost, as the old cliche, something in the translation. I'm sure that he didn't repeat as many words as, because what I'm thinking is probably like German, where I'm going to the store in German can be said 4 or 5 different ways. If you're driving to the store, it's one way. If you're swimming to the store, it's another. If you're walking to the store, it's another word. If you're going to a supermarket, it's another word. If you're going to a little bakery shop, it's another one. So I'm sure that there are intricacies in the Russian language that didn't get translated. Um, I don't want to say right, but yeah, they didn't get translated exactly, how he, and I'm pretty sure, but it's very interesting reading it. And I noticed that his perspective switches back and forth even within paragraphs. Now here's what I mean. In Autumn and in the new book, anything I've ever written, I break up to the perspective. I don't okay, I don't say, okay, if I start from my main character's perspective, that's where I stay for that section. And I make sure there's a separation between when it's her perspective and it switches to his perspective. What I've noticed in some writing is that, especially Tolstoy, that he'll be talking in Anna's perspective, seeing things, and then would switch, all of a sudden to another character, like within the same paragraph, and it was kind of confusing. But like I said, it is probably a translation thing, and I don't do that. I try to, I try to keep the same train of thought. That's some of the things I had to go back and work on. Was that I would, like I said before, I have these flashbacks and then a flashback within a flashback until it really got confusing to me, and I'm the one who wrote it. That was some of the stuff I had to go back and clean up. Also, I think, let me see. Let me look at my note and see what I wrote here. Perspective. Um, yeah, that it switched back and forth, not particularly from the main characters. Oh, yeah. Um, you don't want to always be, well, how you write your book is your business. I don't have nothing to do with that. But I find using different perspectives is okay, like in the new book, from the beginning when he knocks on the door at the spa and tells her he has to leave until after he's showed up at the club and she's found out his new identity, the perspective is hers. She's getting out of the metro. She's thinking about, is she going to perform to an empty audience because of the where she is, that there's a curfew, you know, in in effect. And so she's wondering if she's gonna, she gets to the club and meets that collaborator and goes upstairs to change clothes and take her bath and all this stuff like that. So there is um pretty much from her perspective. I think it's interesting to write from other perspectives because then the story is full. The story is fuller. Now, when he after she finds out who he is, and she kind of runs away to the back of the club, to get ready or whatever from the club. Oh no, actually, her oh no, no, okay, let me go back. Okay, she um but don't do it too much that it's confusing. Every single character does not have to have their own perspective. The narration can take care of some of the minor characters. Um, but certainly from the hero's perspective, the heroine's perspective, and one, say, your bad guys perspective, whatever, maybe a couple of more people in the club. No, I don't think so. Maybe not. Maybe from Madame. Maybe it'll be a little bit from Madame's perspective. Maybe, I don't know. Um, after she finds out who he is and he leaves. Well, he's standing there. She runs away. He's standing there. Madame comes out and tries, kind of convinces him to, which it doesn't take much, to come to the show that night, to show up at the premiere, reopening or whatever of the club that night. And he gets in his car and he's driving down. I think I told you guys this before. He's driving to this meeting where he finds out where he's going to be stationed and what his duty um, station is going to be. His new duty station is going to be. um, as he's riding along, he's saying to himself, special handling, special projects, things like that. How Berlin, the corridors of power are getting mundane and, like, that's not the word I'm looking for, kind of esoteric, I guess. Um, how they're not really saying what they mean. They're kind of double talking, and he's kind of hip to this. And I thought about taking it out, but then I thought he's too intelligent to be absolutely stupid about probably where he's going and probably what he's going to be doing. So that would be, like I was saying before, I'm trying to stay away from both characters being a cliche. I didn't want him to be just going to this duty station and not have some idea what he's going to be actually participating in. um he's riding along and thinking about this. He's all mad because and that's when he sees the portrait in the studio window. And of course she's modeled for this portrait. He sees it in the window. He goes in to try to buy it. The artist won't sell it. And the artist says he destroy it first. He holds a bottle of wine over it and a match, and he's like, "I'll burn it up before I let you have it." And he kind of leaves and he's angry. And then after, okay, so then it switches back to, yeah, and then he gets to the temporary headquarters, and then he SS headquarters there in Paris, and then he goes, he's been thinking about all this stuff, and then he goes in and finds out what his orders are, blah blah blah. So then it switches back to hers. um Now you can't always it be that cut and dry, but I find that's my voice. That's how I write. So you do it however you want to do it. But she then it switches back to her perspective of her actually, standing backstage and um getting ready for the show, this big deal. She's backstage waiting for the other acts um to go on because of course she's the star. And then she's singing, she's dancing, she's performing, and then she afterwards she gets her she's backstage, like she shows up for a couple of minutes at the after show party or something, just to basically, just give a customary, just appearance, special guest appearance, I call it. And then she goes back to her dressing room to undress, take her makeup off and stuff, and she knows he's gonna come back to her. He does. And that's when he, tells her they're going away together, blah blah blah. Um, then she, because a lot of times when you're trying to lay the story down, you kind of want to do it in which I mean it yeah, when you're trying to lay the story down, when you're trying to get the outline the story, that's the words I'm looking for. When you're actually outlining the story, you might want to use the perspective of your hero or heroine, whichever it happens to be in your, but by being a romance writer, it has to be, in my genre, it has to be a relationship. That's the genre. Because I remember asking a writer when I was at one of the writing conferences what actually and I was kind of explaining to them, I was talking about autumn, when I was trying to explain to them, what how it was historically, and how, I got into race relationships and this kind of thing, and was that really romance. And what she said to me is that romance, it's a romance genre as long as there's a relationship, and that's the important thing. So from then on, I realized, yeah, because I thought I might have been going into, I don't know what genre I thought I was kind of moving into, maybe just historical writing, but apparently there can be politics, and there can be race relations, and there can be women's rights issues, and it can be Native Americans issues and stuff in romance. And see, and that's when I'm trying to be more sophisticated. I, instead of just the old cliche, she doesn't like him but he likes her, or she doesn't like, they, and then they finally get together and they fuss and they fight and they argue and they this and they don't like each other and finally they get together. Stop. There are things I wanted to say. There are more important issues, and I think maybe being a black woman, that it was important to me to put um um those kind of things in the book. Race relations and violence, and the and antagonistic relationship between my lead character. This is Autumn. I'm talking about my lead character and her arch villain. That he's a slave. They were both slaves, but the hierarchy where she lives, and in the um living, just practically being raised in the big house and being raised around the master's children, that as far as he's concerned, she might as well be white. She can read, she can write, and she has, choices she can make, even though they're both slaves, I think is what I'm trying to say. And so there's a lot of envy and jealousy in him, and natural antagon I think antagonistic, um that she's a black woman and he's a black man, and she was quote unquote married to one of his friends but never acted to quote unquote one of his friends, and she never acted as a wife to this man. And when he comes after her, he has this jealousy and hatred towards her that's unfounded. And he actually says himself, she doesn't know who he is. When he finally does accost her, she has no idea who he is, because this kind of slave, field slave, she never even would pay any attention to. Exactly like, if she had been the plantation owner's actual daughter, she didn't know who this man is. She didn't know who any of her slave husband's friends were. She didn't know. He could have been anything. So, and that scene is very important, I thought, when he finally does jump out, and she's on the porch, because looking towards the east where the town is and where the fire is. He jumps out at her, and he thinks there's going to be screaming, and because she's going to recognize him, she's going to run and scream. She doesn't even know who he is. I mean, just contempt that she has for him. And this contempt angers him. It angers him. So when you think, okay, let me kind of wind up. When you get into pers- perspective, okay, yeah, okay, let me back up. I think these muscle relaxers are kicking in. When she's waiting to, this is the new book. When she's waiting to go on stage, when she's waiting to get her turn to perform, she also has a pride. She doesn't want to perform for these people, but then again, she does want to perform in front of these people. And and then she, after the show, she goes to the little party for a few minutes. She goes back and she takes off her makeup. Her usual stage door Johnnies aren't hanging around, because someone's shown interest in her. And he comes back there and, kind of bullies her, I guess, into kind of going away with him for for their weekend, the couple of days she's off work. Um, Also, okay, yeah, and then after the show, then it switches back to him, to his perspective, because after the show, him and his cohorts go to this um very high class brothel, and he picks the darkest girl there, which she's not black, but she's dark, like Mediterranean dark, kind of dark. He gets the darkest girl there, and they have oral sex, and the she performs oral sex on him, and he's thinking about the heroine the whole time. He's with this girl. And then he kind of leaves, and he's back in his hotel suite, and he's laying there, thinking about her, and the repercussions of being involved with her. And he says he loves her and he hates her, in this at the same time. Then it's going to switch back to her perspective when they leave to actually go to the Mediterranean. He's going to fly her to the Mediterranean. He doesn't tell her. He says, well, pack up. Like any woman, she's like, well, what should I pack? And he says beach clothes and those kind of things. And she's and so he actually flies her to the Mediterranean, and it flips back to her, because it starts with her sitting in the club, around noon or whatever, because he says he's going to send his driver around noon, and she's actually sitting there waiting with her suitcases to go to um to go on this fancy, little mini vacation with him. And it's the whole thing of her not wanting to ride in the airplane with the swastika on it, and not wanting to be, with him in the airplane. And he's got the his uniform on and that kind of thing. And I'm gonna have to stop because I'm not gonna have time. Okay, I might have to end up making one more. Um, okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop, and then I'm going to watch this one, and I think I'm gonna put my dinner in. I know I don't have time, you guys. I don't eat all the time, but it's just that the time period that usually I start taping is towards the time I should be eating. So I think I'm going to put my dinner in, watch this one, maybe do one more.